Welcome to Carefree and Conscious with me, Susanne Wilson, the Carefree Medium. If you like this type of content, please help me out. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with a friend. Today on Carefree and Conscious, the ghost detective couple, Mark and Barbara Nelson, also known as the Paranelsons. Oftentimes, I meet a couple where one partner is interested in the paranormal and the other one is not. In this case, Mark and Barbara remind me a bit of those well-known investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, in their early days. But unlike the Warrens, Mark, the male, is the psychic medium, and Barb, the female, is the lead technical investigator. Mark is a gifted psychic medium, and Barbara is an empath and also an experienced paranormal investigator who is an expert with the technical equipment that validates what Mark is receiving as the psychic medium. Together, they have investigated hauntings from coast to coast in America. And as a team, they have worked with Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, Paranormal Witness, and Mark was selected by the Fox Network as Most Gifted Psychic Medium. The secrets to their success is their 35-plus year marriage, complementary skill sets, and awesome sense of humor. They both know how to protect each other. They will share insights with you today. And some of what they have to say about their discoveries may shock you. And now, Carefree and Conscious, the ghost detective couple. Mark and Barbara Nelson, the Paranelsons, welcome to Carefree and Conscious.
Hi, how are you, Susanne?
I'm really happy you're here. Thank you so much for being here. What is the Paranelsons? What does that mean, and where did that come from?
You want to take that one? You feel that?
Well, you could take it a couple ways. We're Paranelsons.
There you go. Bum.
And but we also do paranormal investigating, as well as some of Mark does his mediumship and healing. And we also do some detective work. We've been working with some sheriffs to solve some cold cases. So we do a little bit of everything, paranormal and psychic.
And we're trying to do positive things too. We've really had, we it's like sometimes the paranormal, it can be seen as just all negative and dark, but we're trying to reunite families. We're trying to give voice to people in spirit who may not have any other way to communicate, what happened to them, where they are, and all of that. So we're trying to make good contributions.
Well, and I've known Mark, I've known you for, I think, about 11 years now.
Wow.
Almost
really?
exactly
11
like years. Right? Time flies. And I met the awesome Barbara not long after that. Ann and her per year were on the board of a group at the conference. And the parents were there as well. And the president of Helping Parents Heal, Elizabeth, came over and said, I'm buying you and Mark lunch. I'm introducing you. Sit down. You have a lot in common. You're probably going to work together.
Well, isn't she prophetic? Isn't
she? And we have over the years, and it's been really interesting. And I can say, just from people that I've referred to you, and they've needed to get a reading, and I was taking quite a bit of time off for a while, that all the feedback is always 100% wonderful, that you're very evidential, and that you and I have walked into different places and checked out the place memory, and we've had fun with that. But how do you go from place memory and readings into, I want to go into some of America's most paranormally active places? Tell me about that journey. What pulled you and Mark, and did you both get pulled in together at the same time? Or did Barbara join you later? How did this unfold?
Barbara was about maybe a half step behind me. All right. So it started out, I was doing platform reading for a pretty good, a nice audience. And then someone in the audience came up to me afterwards and said, "Do you think you could pick up something in a place with history, with, potentially spirits?" And I said, "I think so. Let's give it a go." So it's like,
But I think our first paranormal experience was on the Queen Mary. That was our very favorite place to go, and I think we went to a ghost hunters event.
That's right.
We met a lot of people that we're friends with now, but and they allowed us to go on the ship and do investigating. And for some reason, Mark and I were always in the middle of something happening.
That was like that's true. That happened, and it was like we'd never done any paranormal investigating before. But then when we were asked to participate as opposed to pay to get in, this was a very different experience, and it was really exciting. And so to me, it's like people in spirit, whether I'm reading for someone in front of me or on through video or phone. It doesn't matter. I've emailed. Spirit shows up regardless. And then Barbara has always been sensitive. She's always been encouraging. I remember the first time I had to say, "Barbara, I think I'm talking to dead people. You don't think I'm crazy, do you?" And she didn't. So if Barbara said, "Get back to work," or said, "What are you doing?" we wouldn't be having this conversation. So
she was open to it. And why were you open to Mark telling you this? Because you guys have been married for how long?
37
years.
Okay. Did you marry Barbara? Did you marry a psychic medium?
I had no idea. But I do know that my grandmother used to consult a tea leaf expert when she was young, and that's how she met. The woman who did her reading actually predicted who she would meet, my grandfather, and so it's been in my family. And my mom's always very open to it. When she found out what Mark did, she was fine with it. She was really interested in it. My sister is very much into
You
it.
introduced us. She introduced me to Kenny Kingston.
Yeah, my sister introduced us both to Kenny Kingston. My sister would go to his events, and so we started going to the Kenny Kingston gatherings.
And he's a psychic medium. Where
he passed a few years ago, but he was
in Hollywood. He
in
was
Hollywood. Okay.
Marilyn Monroe's personal psychic.
And he showed me how it works to use what is it? Psychometry. So he just, "Give me your ring." He just grabbed it, and it's like a wedding ring. "You're gonna blah 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 blah," and then threw it back, and it's like, that was kind of interesting. That was kind of cool. And so now
which you do very, very well. You do that very well. I've watched you do it on stage at 2 different conferences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Barbara and I decided it's like, she was not afraid. When we went into a place, sometimes you're going, as you know very well, you were going to sometimes meet spirits that are not really keen on being helpful to you, or maybe flat out aggressive, or may do things that startle you, make your hair stand up a little bit. All right. So,
or follow you home.
Which is also a real thing.
Okay. So there's evidential mediumship, which is talking to pretty nice people, pretty average everyday people who mainly when they were here in the physical, got up every day, worked a job, paid taxes or not, but basically did the right thing, right? They did the right thing.
They were trying.
Right. And you're giving evidence, they identify themselves, evidence message. Juxtapose that with walking in some place where someone says, "Hey, my hotel has a problem," or "My home has a problem. We're scared. We don't know what this is." There are people watching this now that think maybe that their place is haunted. First off, how do you guys prepare to go in? What do you do?
We say prayers, and
we do a blessing.
We bless ourselves.
Yeah.
I have a non-denominational quickie prayer that seems to be helpful in terms of visualization. We surround ourselves in the white light of love and divine protection. We will allow only positive energy to influence us. We will not allow the negativity of others to affect us in any way. And we very strongly see ourselves surrounded in white light. We use holy water We, we do say prayers, and that does seem to make a difference. One time when we didn't,
That's when we ran into.
we realized, we gotta be better protected.
Tell us about that. And just to be clear, you're going into a trouble zone or a hot spot. It's
Right.
not that if somebody wakes up in the morning and forgets to ground and center themselves, something bad is going to happen. You're going in,
Right.
you're geared up, but you forgot to put your armor on, right? So
Well, yeah.
what price did you pay for that, and how did you fix it?
Well, we started out, just so you know, we were brought by a TV production company to someplace we didn't know what it was going to be exactly. We didn't know. And then we get there, and all of a sudden I'm seeing somebody like right on the front porch. So it's like I kind of lost, I got excitedly out of process. And so we kind of leaped right in without thinking.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit careless, and
Yes.
and that happens. I mean, you get kind of ahead of yourself, and you don't do what you normally do, and we paid the price.
Like you
Yeah.
said, Barb and I have been married for decades. We're going to be coming up on 43 in April.
Together.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, 38 years.
But we knew
I'm not
each
90.
other.
We're not 90. Okay.
We were kids.
We were kids. We were 12. 12 years old. We got married. Our parents thought it was so odd.
Can you kids tell us where did you go, and did something follow you home? What happened?
Yeah, so we actually went to a place called the Jaws House. It's the Souden House, and it's in Hollywood, kind of Los Feliz, Hollywood area.
Oh yeah,
And supposedly
that whole area is a hot spot. What are you talking about?
Unbelievable. And this particular house supposedly is where the Black Dahlia murder occurred.
Okay.
Not just her murder, but several murders. And so we went in there ready to go, had all my equipment. The production team was leading us around to different areas. And it just like snowballed, because right away Mark was getting picked on by the spirit who was the murderer, and he was toying with me and the producer who was also a woman, and we were getting dizzy spells, so much that I had to hold myself up against a wall, which I'd never. I usually go into places. It never affects me. I like you said, I have my armor, and
she's rock solid.
So this was like, whoa, what was that? So this guy was aggressive. He was intelligent
in spirit. This murderer in spirit.
Yeah, and he was just toying with us. Like he was very powerful, but in a very negative, evil way.
And what got us is like, okay, we're there. Okay, we're leaving now. It's like, whoo, that's over. Okay, that's it. No big deal. It was unpleasant. It was weird, and we were kind of glad to go. And then we get home. And then Barb and I got into the worst fight we've had in decades. I mean,
oh my God, that was like.
We normally don't.
I thought Mark was possessed.
Usually, if we disagree, it's kind of like we grind our teeth and
we just realized like, what is going on here?
I felt like I was a real screamer, and we don't have screamer fights. And then it's like,
oh boy, that's a sign. It's a personality change.
Right.
That probably the first sign of oppression.
Exactly.
Right? So can you clarify like what level this got to you, and how did you deal with it? Were you possessed? Oppressed? Like oppression is like an overshadowing. Possession would be like a total takeover, which I understand is very, very rare, isn't it?
Well, oppressed for us, and we just realized wait a minute, this isn't how we normally do things.
Right.
Yeah.
We kind of figured it out. Yeah.
All right, let's back up. I'm mad, you're mad, we're really never this screaming mad. Okay.
But not just that. I would wake up at 3:00 in the morning, and I would see this presence at the foot of the bed, and it was him, and he was a very smart intellectual.
Genius level.
Yeah, he
person.
was genius level, you know, Mensa, whatever, genius surgeon, psychiatrist,
A concert pianist, oddly enough.
concert pianist by the time he was 9, you know. And so he was just like toying with us. I could just feel it. Like he was having fun with us, you
And
know,
we had
at our expense.
we had to really think, okay, go. I mean, we immediately, you know, asked for God's protection,
Right.
protect us.
Said
You know,
prayers.
we're not just in here on our own. In fact, I would say anyone that's going into a place, surround yourself with prayer. Make sure that God is with you, whatever your faith or denomination or belief system.
Right.
Ensure that God, you know, make sure that God, the people that you're going to see in spirit, know whose team you're on. You're on the side of light. You're on the side of love, and that you're trying to be of service to people, even in spirit or other. We found that too, that people in spirit don't want to be there necessarily, and they don't know how to leave, or they're stuck. And so you can speak to them. I like to think that we have clients on the physical and the spiritual side when we go into a place with history.
But he was literally trying to break us up.
Oh yeah, he was like just.
And it went on for about what, a good 3 months or so.
Well, it would be back and forth. It's like,
Yeah.
get away. Okay, we're having a problem
Right, I
here. Is
didn't
this
even
more
wanna-
than us? Yeah.
I didn't even want to go to sleep. I was so worried about, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I think what happened in the end was he realized that our love for each other, our bond, was not, you know, we couldn't break through because, you know, we were the light. You know, our bond was the light. And
Yeah, and I think when you're in that state of having these beautiful cords of attachment with a partner, that if, you know, something has followed you home and it wants to draw energy from you, it's got to try to break those cords of light. And it can, you know, it can put a little what I call spiritual dust bunnies on them, but can't really break them.
That's a good term.
Yeah, right. So it's like a residual type of energy that, you know, they're in there trying to break it and can't. So when, you know, I love what you have said about it's your intention of when you go in a place. I think if the intention is I'm going in to provoke the souls, make fun of them, or try to get them to do something so I can have a cheap thrill, then your intention is probably not going to protect you as well. So
No.
take heed. You know, you're not doing this for fun. You're doing this to help, and you have a calling. But when did this calling really kick in? So I know, Mark, that you saw your dad shortly after he passed. Tell us about that. How did you see him?
Well, when I first saw my dad was about a month after his funeral. Little kid out raking leaves, trying to just be normal, whatever normal is, be normal. We can all laugh and say, I don't know what normal is anymore, but I was trying to act like a kid whose father just hadn't been murdered. And so I turned as I'm raking, and then I just felt like the need to look over to the front yard, and I saw my dad, and my dad looked pretty solid. He looked like my dad. And I thought, all right, I'm losing my mind. I mean, it was very nerve-wracking because it's like I wasn't really raised with the tradition of mediumship. There wasn't anything like that. That was right out of the movies. You know, I didn't know what to expect, but he was there. He was not threatening, but it scared me. And I didn't know if I was losing my mind. And so I just said, all right. And he just basically said, I'm okay. I'm okay. All right. Because when he died, he was definitely not okay. So then I saw him again at school, and I really pushed him away because it's like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to contend with seeing people in spirit because I was a kid. And then I saw him again as an adult. He gave me messages that I could validate, because then I knew I wasn't just hearing things or wishing things. Like, I wish I could talk to Dad. Well, Dad told me something I didn't know, and it turned out to be accurate. So, and then Barbara has been with me. I mean, we've been places where Barbara is like, I love this one time. She's like, I smell cigar smoke, and no one has smoked in this house in 40 years. You know, that was kind of, and then, or she'll say, hey, Mark, over this way. There's something here when we go into a large home, and so we've had those experiences where it's like, I'll trust her if she says, I'm feeling like there's somebody over here,
Right.
and I can know where I'm going. I think I know. And then she gets something. It's like, hey, no, I have to see where Barbara is getting her feelings of something.
Well, Barbara, so we've established that your husband here is not just a wonderful person, but is also a very evidential medium and wants to be helpful, hopeful, and healing, and succeeds at that. I have happened to know that.
Yeah.
What was your first experience, and when did you make the shift into, I'm not just going to let Mark tell me about his stuff, I'm out there too?
I mean, I look back when I was a little kid, and all little kids are, afraid. They're, they hear anything, go under your covers, and I just remember I think I was like 6 years old. I shared a room with my sister, and I woke up just early in the morning, and I looked at my doorway, and I saw this white floating something. It was a person or something, and I think it was trying to communicate with me. And I remember just staring at it. I wasn't afraid of it. I was just like, whoa, what's that? And I felt like for a little kid, that's pretty, brave. I would have just gone under the covers or something, but I was actually really interested, like, what is that? And then it just kind of like dissipated and went away. And so that kind of like, it always stuck with me, like, what the heck was that? And then, I picked up stuff later, like high school, college, with getting interested in paranormal stuff, and meeting Mark, although at the time we were both like oblivious, like,
No.
But eventually we both kind of like came out, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm interested.
Outed myself as a paranormal, a paranormal kind of person, a psychic. I mean, early on, first time Barbara met me, I looked more like Spicoli from Ridgemont High. Rolled in on a skateboard with long bushy hair.
Right.
And
Speaking of which, you were also an actor early on. What were you on? How did that happen? And what were you on?
Well, pure nepotism, no talent required at all if your dad is in the business.
Right.
My dad was in the business. I ended up being on 9 episodes of Welcome Back, Kotter. My job was basically not to stand in front of John Travolta. Don't block Travolta. Okay, use your head. Stay over here.
Okay, all right. And you had the long hair that you mentioned.
I was channeling Peter Frampton at the time. I don't know. Anybody remember Frampton? Frampton Goes Live from 30 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ago. Soundtrack to one of my summers for sure.
Well, that was me way back when. But then, and Barbara was this very serious art student. She was very serious and very good, frankly. And then we met in an acting class, and
we had fun.
Yeah.
You guys are a lot of fun to hang out with, which I've been able to do. And Barbara, you have a very calming and stabilizing presence that I feel around you. There's a sense of being centered. And I think you guys, you play off of each other in a way. Have you always been the techie? Because I know you handle the equipment. So
yeah, pretty much, because it's always interested me. And like anytime we have any computer glitches, we've never had to hire a computer tech.
Barbara's
I do all of it.
She's
I just figured
very
it out.
comfortable. For me, it's like swimming in a cess. I mean, I can barely get through it. I'm learning.
Better.
I'm not entirely hopeless, but Barbara's like, oh, just.
But I love all the new equipment, and I love experimenting with it, and we do get confirmations, which really
that's important.
We have Mark is like amazing, but for people that can't see or feel anything, the equipment is just another level of verification.
Well, she has a couple pieces, but what it does is if I hear something and then she gets a boop, and the fact that there's no ego between the two of us. We play nice because we've of
Yeah.
decades of doing it. And we just know that, okay, I trust her. She's coming up with something. Bang. I don't have to say things. Barbara anticipates, I anticipate her. And so then we end up with some very fluid, affirmations and
We actually had this one time, we were at that hospital, and we had one of the recorders that the spirit works through the
like
box.
it's called the spirit box or whatnot. It picks up.
Mhm.
Somebody asked the question, who is here with us? And they said, Mark, Barb.
It said Mark and Barb. And it really, what it does is it kind of
That
flips
was
around,
funny.
picking up radio waves from any and all places.
Right.
But it picked up on us, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that gave me chills to just think about
It's
that.
pretty amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great to get evidence. Mark hears something clairaudiently, or you sense something, Barbara, and then there it is on the recorder, went on playback. We know that it's nice to have that corroboration. So all of that's great, but why in the world would two happy, wonderful people want to work on cold cases and get into murders and autopsy reports and things like that? What is going on there? I went in, and when did it start? I know somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, no, we just started getting involved with that remotely, and we have a friend of ours who is getting us involved with a few cases, and it's a very different experience because not always it's most of the time it's not a happy occurrence, and
No.
No.
the spirit are distressed.
Yeah.
Right.
So you actually feel what they felt, which I remember we did the two girls, and I started getting images, and I said, okay, that's enough. I understand what
You really
happened.
don't want to. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to unsee some things.
Yeah, you have to cut it off at a point, because it's like, okay, I understand what happened,
Yeah.
but and Mark is just very how would you say, Mark is very understanding and almost like a medical doctor, very analytical,
I've got that in my head.
and understands what the people went through, but he also sees the perpetrators too. And
Okay.
that's what really,
Mark, does this help you process your father's murder?
Yeah, I think that it makes me very empathetic towards
yeah.
what people experienced. I mean, when my dad was murdered, we suspected very strongly, but could not prove who it was. So
Never?
now
It's an open case?
it's an open case, but it's almost like we can't prove who did it. It was back in 1969. There was in New York.
Very heavily mob control.
It was in a mob area.
Yeah.
There was this guy was purported to be a made member of a mafia family, and that right after he committed this murder, that he was it was in New York, and then the next morning he was in Florida, and that each of the witnesses that stepped forward who could testify were harassed. Apartments were burned out, cars were exploded, people were followed home, and so no one would testify. And so without any way to validate it, even though I was very clear about who I thought it was,
And there were witnesses,
and they
but they wouldn't. Yeah.
they told us, my mom, this is the guy who we believe did it. But just as it sounds like out of like Goodfellas or
It
something.
is.
Well, those things are real.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But they told my mom is that they know where his name, but they know where your kids wait on the bus stop. Your name is in the newspaper. I'm one of 6 kids, and she said that there's no way we can protect all of your children. And if you did something to harm one of them, there's no limits on what they would do to harm you. So this cop, this big old Irish cop said, it's like, I would not recommend that you pursue this any further. And an interesting thing I actually was starting to do, I wanted to see for myself what happened. And so I was in I had, by the way, back it up. I had this one piece, this ceramic piece, a caddy that was
It was like a little hobo.
it was like a little
Yeah.
hobo, like you could hang his car keys in one hand and his watch in the other and a wallet.
Yeah.
And I had that, I still do. And so it had even been broken in an earthquake and we repaired it. But anyway, so it's in the bathroom next to our bedroom. And I'm just meditating on seeing, okay, I want to see what happened. I want to see what happened. I want to know. And I'm drifting, and I feel like I'm going in really fast from like high up in, drifting in on what happened. And then I hear this clink, clink in the other room. And that kind of snapped me out of like, it's almost like a Zoom camera going in to see my dad. I'm seeing my dad laying on the ground, and I hear a clink, 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 something breaking in the other room. It's like, oh God, what is that? So it pulled me out of where I was looking. And so I ended up walking into the bathroom, and one of the hands had fallen off of the little hobo that was my dad's and fallen into the sink.
Oh, so he was acknowledging that you were remote viewing the past
Right.
and the whole scene.
That whole idea that you can't unsee certain things, my hair stands up when I think about it. I know it sounds more than incredible, but it was just like, oh God, that really happened. Oh,
well,
God.
what's your dad doing on the other side all these years? What things does he enjoy?
I think that dad likes, well, he had 6 kids with my mom. I think he checks in on all of us. He checks in with me pretty regularly every week, pretty much every other day. I get a flash from him. I would say that on the other side, that people in spirit can learn still. They can look at where they want to go next. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we can come back and that we can choose. I think that he wants to choose again. You know, you have to wonder, it's like, I also believe that we probably have a say. I do believe we can choose. I want to be born into a home like this and this. He was born into a broken home. And then why would anyone willfully come into a life and where you're going to have all these kids and then leave them at age 33? It's difficult to understand that, but there is a spiritual reason for this. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening has had a spiritual experience, hard life, moment where it's like, why am I going through this? What am I supposed to learn? What can I learn from this? And at a soul level, I think that we can learn from even the worst of experiences. Frankly, for me, seeing my father, losing my dad at an early age was arguably the worst thing that ever happened in my life. But then it opened me up to being able to do spiritual work, my psychic work. And that, other than meeting Barbara,
And I wouldn't have.
I mean, yeah, if my dad had not been murdered, we would have stayed in New York or New Jersey.
Right.
So, but my mom remarried one of his best friends, who coincidentally, like a few weeks before my dad was killed, he woke up in the middle of the night next to my mom and says, if anything happens to me, George would be perfect for you. And so,
Oh my gosh.
And he says, and she's like, what are you talking about? You're 33, you're healthy, you're strong. There's nothing going to happen.
I think his dad was psychic.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
and
for
George
sure.
was Uncle George, which was a friend of theirs that they both knew from when they were like 19 and 20 years old. And then Uncle George would come to visit, and they'd hang out and have big old weekend long parties. And George, was coincidentally married to a friend of my mom's and then divorced. And so when my dad died, he came to visit, and then he came to visit longer, and they fell in love. And who marries someone with 6 kids? We would say, George, saint or insane? Saint or insane? It's a very fine line.
It's a little of both.
Little of both. Who says that they're mutually exclusive?
That is
saints,
amazing. It's amazing and it's beautiful. And I think we should get to some questions. My Carefree Souls community or our live audience today, and I see that some questions are coming in.
Oh, thank you. This is great. If you think there is a stranger spirit in your home, what is your next steps? What should you do? I tried to say hello, but didn't get any response back.
there's a lot of things to consider as far as who might. Do you know who were the former owners and how old the house was? The history of the house?
Know a little bit of the history. It's an older home. It was a party place. And it's on the edge of a sand pit that has just all been filled in with trees and everything. And before that, people used to come and party pretty hard there. I actually blessed it when I came in with just oil on the walls and
Right.
things like that. And last 2 weeks ago, I was in that twilight sleep and I saw two women on towards the edge of my bed, middle age, but they had older fashioned dress.
Mm-hmm.
And they were gone. They're very two tall, very women, but just for a minute.
Wow, that's an amazing experience. What would your
that's
first
new.
step be? That's pretty cool. What would your first steps be, you guys?
Well, I'd try talking to them again and say, look, I know you're there. I see you're there. I feel you're there. And I would also immediately try to set up some boundaries. This is my home. The year is 2023.
Right.
Okay.
And
Yep.
let them know
Okay.
that you're not giving away any of your home, your life. And I would say, it's like, look, if you don't want to respond to me, that is up to you, but do not try to scare me, my family. I would definitely kind of lean forward. And first, I mean, you don't want to be aggressive and nasty, because
Right.
these people may have no intention of hurting you. So start out nice and just say, look, this is my home. If you want to visit, you can, but don't go surprising me or anyone we love, okay?
Yeah,
And
leave the dog alone.
leave my dog alone.
Yeah, I would say unless they're like really tormenting you,
Yeah, no, they're not.
then you'd have to really get some professional help. But if it's just a matter of coexisting, it's
Yeah.
like you set your boundaries. And
Exactly.
it's like, I'm not going to bother you. You're not going to bother me. This is my house, and I don't want to really have any interaction. I just want to live here, so let's make a pact, but and usually they'll leave you alone.
Yeah, and if they don't, then that's when you.
And you might see them, you might see stuff, but as long as they're not like lifting you off the bed or throwing things at you.
Playing with the light, anything that makes you
Yeah.
uncomfortable. If they start to make you uncomfortable, let them know that's not acceptable. That's not okay.
Right.
You know what bugs me? The one thing that bugs me is being watched.
Yes.
That is a super clear boundary that I have. Do not stand there and watch me. I know that you're there. Some of it also, since there was so much activity in the house, Pat said it was like a party house. Could some of it be just residual energy?
Yes,
Yeah.
it can be.
So it's like a memory replaying
Right.
I know that there were some people were killed in the area also.
in the
One particular
area.
person,
Okay.
yeah, in the
Okay.
yard type thing. Every time
Okay.
we dig up something, we're looking for skeletons.
Oh God.
Whoa.
Well, you don't know if you're dealing with a victim or a murderer.
Right.
So
Great
don't go
point.
in swinging,
Okay.
angry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I find by saying a little prayer,
I pray all the time. Yep.
prayer is a positive intention, that seems to put a damper on anything negative, that's not demonic. But if it's just like an energy that's replaying a memory or some type of residual thing, most of the time saying a prayer, if you feel uncomfortable, that puts a lid on it a little bit. And just don't dwell on it. I think just going about your day, and don't give it the attention, and I think that you can coexist. I mean, we feel like in our house that we have there's a spirit of an older woman. I think they probably had someone's mother, grandmother lived here with them and died here. And so we both feel her presence, but she doesn't bother us. And, we just kind of, she's kind of accepted us, and, we don't really put any big attention. We can hear noises, like when we're watching TV, we hear upstairs noises.
People walking a lot.
Yeah, walking.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, but we understand it, and we just, it's just like, okay,
Do you think that if it persists, even with boundaries and everything, and it's like becoming a daily occurrence, it's just getting to be a nuisance? Do you think Pat should ask if they need her help, or are you up for that, Pat?
I've actually already did it. One
Okay,
time
good.
my dog was on the stairs and barking at something that I didn't see anything. So I did talk and said, if there's something I can do for you, please let me know. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
very cool.
If it's an aggressive, I'm going to get your attention for some reason, I would definitely bring in some type of professional, or, if you don't have a problem with bringing in a psychic medium.
Barbara, a tool that you use, that we use together, is an EMF meter, or a
K2 meter.
A K2 meter, and you can ask yes/no questions.
Yeah.
And so if they're being silent, you can tell them, look, I know you're here. Here's if you get a name, or you find it, are you male, female, however they choose to identify in spirit, you can then begin a conversation, and you explain to them, this is how it works. If you want to say yes, make this blink twice, and you go up to it, or you want to say no, go to it. And then once you establish a dialogue, you can start to say, can you see the white light from where you are?
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. That's a great idea. And the K2s are not expensive.
No.
At all. They used to be when they first came out. I've got an early version, and I've got a Mel meter that also does the temperature.
Yeah.
It's nice to demonstrate to people. I was helping a relative who was living on a haunted ranch way out in the woods up in the mountains. And I was like, I'm going to show you, what you have here, because my telling you isn't as evidential as this to help them out. And, but then I see that it can be this great communication tool, and Pat's already had conversations. She's already asked, how can I help you? Yeah. It's ongoing. Nobody wants to wake up in the middle of the night and see two people standing there on any kind of ongoing basis. Because even if it's not scary, it's just startling. Mm-hmm. I get startled still. I'm not afraid, but I'm like, oh, really? But my boundaries keep me pretty good. So does that help, Pat?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
If you think that there's a spirit wanting to interact with you, speak to it. And also too, if you're a student of Suzanne's, I would suggest that you have learned how to trust your own voice, that sense.
Yeah.
Try to honor it, and by using it and asking questions, and seeing if you get validations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to bring Lisa on. She's got a question here. Lisa, would you like to talk?
Sure. Hi, guys.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
So my question is, when you're working a cold case, and there's got to be people that don't believe in what you do. So how do you handle those types of challenges?
Well, right now we've worked recently with two different sheriffs that were like taking a position. One was a sheriff and one was a private investigator. And they were taking the position of like, all right, being skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Especially the second.
Okay.
The second one. So what I would suggest is like, trust what you get, and don't worry about what anybody else says. It's just like, this is what I'm getting. If you don't like it, it doesn't jive. Maybe there's something you don't know. All right. Because very often they don't know. They're guessing. They're used to, in law enforcement, I think they're used to trying to set people up with questions. There may be a little bit of that here, but I encourage you not to work against yourself.
Okay.
Don't second guess. And if they say it doesn't make any sense, I don't know, it can't be any good, thanks for nothing. Like, I'm sure Suzanne and many other people here can validate this, where it's like your client doesn't know it yet. And then they get proof after the fact.
That's why we don't get real rattled when even in a reading, someone says, I don't know about that. I don't know. Or worse, no.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, just write it down or just record it, because then they come back later and go, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
thank you.
But
I
yeah,
researched-
cops are trained observers. My brother was a police detective, and he had a really good crime solving rate, and he realized, he's very empathic, like how Barbara is, and he would just feel which way to turn next, and that helped him get to the answers sooner. Now he doesn't do that anymore. They put him in crimes against children as a detective. That lasted a few years and is a big burnout thing. Can you imagine being empathic and anybody dealing with stuff like that? But cops have a demeanor that you just, God bless them. They need to do it that way, but you can't let it rattle you. I agree with you guys.
Thank you.
Sure
Thanks
thing.
for the question, Lisa.
Thank you.
Do we have any more, Diane?
Yeah, Melanie has an interesting question. I'm going to allow Melanie to talk if she would like to ask her question.
Hi there, guys. Thanks again for
Melanie.
coming. Thanks for coming on the show today. I find it very interesting. Mark, what was your father's name? Your
Oh, I
first name?
wrote, by the way, Melanie, I saw your comment and I'm sorry that your aunt was murdered. My
Yeah.
father's name was Robert Tiedemann Nelson, Tiedeman Nelson. And that it was, I think it was a soldier in the Joey Gallo family.
Okay.
Joey Gallo at the time was kind of
Right.
going nuts in Brooklyn. And I've done research in addition to knowing the name of, we think, the guy who did it, who incidentally showed up in the cover of a magazine that kind of
It was called
Tele-
Mob.
there was, I looked up this guy, all right, his name was Richard DiMatteo. I looked up Richard DiMatteo and found him on the cover of a magazine called Mob Candy.
Mob.
Wow.
And I wrote to the magazine and said, I think that the guy you have on the cover killed my father.
Right.
They said, sorry for your loss.
It was his son.
It was his son.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nothing proven. He was never charged. I'm sorry for your loss. And so, for legal purposes, I have no proof that Richard DiMatteo did anything, but this
Right.
is a name that was provided to me. Again, it happened in Brooklyn at a time that was very, very violent. Many
Right.
murders occurred. My dad supposedly pulled over. His car had a problem. He pulled over, was waiting to get the car repaired, got into a fight in a bar, and was killed by a couple of people that, guns and knives.
Yeah.
So he was a carpet layer. He was there. He was in the city visiting my grandmother, and then we get the double whammy of like, grandma may not live now. Dad's gone.
Right.
Kind of tough. So
It's the fact that happens and that it's such a deep part of your experience. And then I never met my aunt. She died in 1961, but I've always wanted to contact her or somehow ask her what happened. And that is also led me to wanting to help solve cold cases as well, like missing persons or things like that I've actually practiced on my own, and I've been somewhat successful here locally, but I don't work with the police officers or police department or anything like that. It would be something I would really like to be part of, though.
So Melanie, to clarify, because when this is posted on YouTube, they're not seeing the comments.
Okay.
I think you commented that your aunt was killed.
She was
a mob-related murder.
She was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was struck by a car. She had she had wrecked her car in the country, and by the time someone had discovered her, she was already covered up with a white sheet. So,
Wow.
I still
have you heard? I'm sorry. Have you heard from her?
No, she's never contacted me through any resource that I've encountered at all, personally, intuitively, or speaking to other mediums. So I just wish someday
That happens.
she could come through.
And I
Maybe-
really feel like the soul will be accountable. Like one day when you're on the other side, they're accountable for being a no-show in your meditations, your dream visits.
Oh.
You have to ask. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes the answer from my guides is what I've heard is they totally disconnected. They check on you from time to time,
Mhm.
but it's like, nope, I'm not doing the whole earth connection thing, but I'm going to wait for them to come here because this is real life.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
And
I
I'll
wouldn't take
honor
it
that. I'll honor
personally.
that. Yeah, I'll honor that for sure. So
Yeah.
Melanie, was this your mom's sister?
yes, that was my mom's aunt. Actually, she's my great aunt. Her
Great
name
aunt.
was Jean. Her name was Jean.
Well, I wish I could tell you I'm getting something right off the bat, but I'm at this moment I'm not. I would say let me look at it. If I get we'll give you a way to reach out to us, and maybe
That'd
we
be
can
great.
talk after.
While you're talking about how to reach out to you, how do people work with you guys, and where can they see you online, on TV? Gosh, Mark,
Yeah.
you've done so many TV shows. It's a long, long list.
Well,
Right.
we're actually in the works for another TV show. This will be probably on social media, YouTube.
We'll see.
Thing. But that's coming up. It'll probably be a paranormal type
And
show.
you're doing some sessions on Instagram as well, I believe.
Yes.
How
Right
do
now-
people get on those?
Well, you can watch me. We're actually on every Tuesday night. Myself, this is me and tonight's a Tuesday. Wherever we show up, where the show shows up, it's Mark on Instagram. I'm Mark the Medium. Where also you can find Barbara and me, the Paranelsons. So
on Instagram.
We're the Paranelsons.
And we're open to anybody can get a hold of us for any type of investigation in the area. I mean, we're willing to go down to Georgia.
We currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Yeah.
But I also have a website. If you go, the website is two URLs, markthemedium.com and marknelsonmedium.com. You can find me in both ways. If you find me, you find my better half.
Awesome. And don't stop listening, listeners, because I still have a question to ask, and it's an important one. Mark and Barbara Nelson, what have you learned that could save us a lot of grief by your telling us about it now? What have you learned, and how can we benefit from what you have learned?
I'll jump on that
You
first.
go ahead. You go ahead.
Always protect yourself. Always protect yourself, and do not expect people in spirit who are to always tell the truth. They might present themselves as being a certain way. Don't just assume, oh, it's a little girl and she's blah blah blah, or this is your aunt. If it's a dark spirit, they may lie to you and use what they can tell about you against you. So say prayers, surround yourself in white light, and don't expect people in spirit. They have not taken an oath of honesty all the time.
And I would add one more thing is listen to your gut.
Totally.
Because 9 times out of 10, your intuition is correct. Everybody was given a gift of intuition. And so often we slough it off like, oh, that can't be, listen to it because you're going to be right.
I'm really thrilled that you guys don't say, oh, I'll never attract anything like that. Well, sometimes you don't know what you're walking into. The spirit world is all around us all of the time. So your intention, your thoughts, words, and actions, keeping them helpful, hopeful, and healing really helps. But you guys go and you do some of the spiritual dirty work and cleaning up the spiritual dust bunnies and helping people cross over. What is the most emotional case you've ever worked, and why did that touch you deeply?
Can I go with the one about that?
They have to talk about it because there have been so many, you guys. I love it.
The one where the girl on the Christmas tree was.
And we'll close on that. We'll close on that. So spill the tea.
Barbara and I are a team. I'm grateful for her. But this was one I did a reading where this mother came through. She had an accent. It was just a phone reading. I couldn't hear. I couldn't make out what was the origin of her accent. Didn't matter. I'm reading for her. I see this young girl shows up, 15 or 16, and then she's describing, oh, you worked on the school paper. You died related to a car accident. Okay, all of these different things started coming through about who she was, how she had, that she had died in a car accident. And then at the last minute, almost as a throwaway, I'm getting this word. It keeps coming back in my head, and I can't even remember exactly how it sounded, but I said in Russian, Christmas tree. I asked this woman, does this word mean anything to you? It's in a language I don't get. Christmas tree. And she said, you just said Christmas tree in Russian. And then it's like, oh, you're Russian. Oh, she's saying you didn't put up your Christmas tree this year because she died right before Christmas. She's telling you to put up the Christmas tree, take back the holiday. And it was just like, oh God. And that's when I started to like, oh, now I'm getting all weepy here because, and this woman started to cry and we were just like, oh God, I try to be dispassionate and in control when I'm reading. I just fell off the rails because this young girl was saying, take back the holiday, be happy again. This is not the time of year to be mourning me. This is the time of year to celebrate me. And to get a word in another language I didn't know just made me realize I'm just a piece of wire. I'm just this little intermediary. I am not important. It's spirit choosing to work through me.
Right.
And by working through you, Spirit gave some healing. And when that I think that every time you give a little bit of healing, you get healing back.
Halo effect.
Right?
Halo effect.
Absolutely. And the Spirit people want us to keep on living, right? Hey guys, thanks for all that you do. Mark and Barbara Nelson, the Paranelsons. Thank you.
Susanne, I miss hanging out.
I know. We'll have to get together soon.
I would love that. We'll figure out a reason.
Yeah.
I am absolutely up for that. We need an excuse. That's all.
The thinnest of them.
Right.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. And thank you everyone for paying attention to us. And hopefully we'll all be in touch again.
Connect with Mark and Barbara Nelson at marknelsonmedium.com and under the Paranelsons on social media.